We people who are darker than blue, don't let us hang around this town and let what others say come true.
Welcome, everyone, and happy Friday to everyone listening right now on 89.3 FM in Washington, D.C. Glad to hear from you. I am Jackie Lupon. Glad you are listening in today. I know we are glad it's not snowing today, although we just heard that we will have some more snow. I am happy about that. I know many of you are not happy about that. I cannot help it. I love a good snowstorm. I know that us DC residents, we really cannot deal with precipitation and driving at the same time. Hopefully we'll get better. I keep hoping against hope. I know we're not. So winter is a finite period of time. At least it used to be before climate change. Who knows what's going to happen now? But hey, we are just happy that we are here today, 5 o'clock on Friday, darker than blue. I am Jacqueline Lukman, and boy, am I so happy that you all are listening on WPFW 89.3 FM on the radio. Everyone who is watching on Black Liberation Media on YouTube or on Facebook right now, thank you so much for joining. And if you're listening on the radio, yes, you can watch this show as it's being done. And if you stick around for a few minutes after this show goes off the radio, you can stick around for the after show, which is the dark room, where we go more in depth into some more stuff that we don't have time to get into on this show. But you know what? I am glad that you are here today because we are in the midst of our pledge drive here on WPFW 89.3 FM in Washington, D.C. This hour, I on this show have a $500 goal, and I know we can meet and even exceed this goal with your help. And I am asking for everyone who is listening and watching to donate today. If you've been listening to this show and any of the shows on WPFW today and you have never donated, now is your time to support the station and the shows that support you with the kind of information and analysis you will not find anywhere else. So you can make a one-time donation of any amount today to help me meet this $500 goal for this hour in many, many ways. First, you can donate on the web. That's by going to WPFWFM.org. That is so easy to do. If you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, you're already at your computer. Open up another tab. Go right to WPFWFM.org. Head on over to that site and click donate and make your contribution right now. You can also donate via text. So easy, takes 10 seconds. Take out your phone, text the letters WPFWFM to the numbers 801-801 and follow the link that comes up to donate. You can also donate via Cash App at $WPFWFM. If you can use Cash App, it has never been easier to send your support to WPFW at $WPFWFM. And in all of the instances, I would be so appreciative if you would indicate that you are donating to Darker Than Blue. That would be fantastic for the tally for my show, for my obligation for this pledge drive for this hour. But look, especially folks, if you have been listening and you haven't donated before, you can absolutely donate a one-time donation now. That would be greatly appreciated. But do you know what would be even better? Do you know what would be even more fantastic if at least 3 new listeners donated during this hour for Darker Than Blue? What would be even more fantastic if 3 additional people became sustaining members. What does that mean to be a sustaining members? Well, your small donation, the same small amount every month over a year, adds up to a huge amount of support for Darker Than Blue and for WPFW. That means instead of just donating $10 one time, which I would be so appreciative if you're able to do that, but if you can do more, if you can do $10 a month over a year, that gets done automatically when you make this initial pledge, what you will end up donating to Darker Than Blue and WPFW will be $120 a year. So you can call or go to the web and say, I want to pledge $120 and I want it to be contributed over 12 months. That means instead of one chunk of $120 coming out of your resource account, whatever it is, checking, savings, debit card, whatever, that gets spread out over 12 months. So you're not donating $120 all at one time. You're donating $10 a month over the year, $15 a month, 20, 30, 50. Anything you can do to support this show and support this station over the next hour would be deeply appreciated, because listen, not only do we have real people waiting to take your call when you call to donate at 202-588-9739 or 1-800-222-9739, real person waiting to take your call right now, but you can actually help keep Darker Than Blue and WPFW and all of the other programming that you love on this station on the air by becoming a first-time pledge donator today or becoming a monthly sustainer today. I'm looking for 3 and 3 in the next hour. 3 first-time listener pledges and 3 monthly sustainers. I know we can meet this $500 goal. You just got your marching orders. Let's do it, y'all. Come on, let's go. So look, the other thing that I really wanted to say to you today is that the one drawback to having this time slot for this show is that I have to wait a whole week to talk to you, dear listeners, about things that happened last weekend. And of course, the big thing was Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime performance. Been a lot of conversation about this, but instead of just giving you an analysis, I actually want to kind of ground us in some very important words that I'm thinking people don't know what they mean. And I'm going to ask you all a few questions. All right. The first word I want us to be clear on is revolutionary. What does that word mean? Well, it's defined as involving or causing a complete or dramatic change, or engaging in or promoting political revolution. And the dictionary, this is dictionary.com, says the similar words are rebellious, insurgent, rioting, mutinous, renegade, insurrectionary, sorry about that, seditious, insubordinate, subversive. Now, I'm asking you about this word revolutionary and its similar words because now I want to ask you some questions. What about Kendrick Lamar's performance at the Super Bowl promoted, caused, or even suggested a drastic change in this society to occur? What about his performance was rebellious, insurrectionary, seditious, or even subordinate, or insubordinate, rather, is what the word should be, insubordinate? Some people have said that his performance was very rebellious and very insubordinate, but if Kendrick Lamar was paid by the same NFL that blackballed Colin Kaepernick for the most benign protest against racist police terrorism that ever existed, which was taking a knee during the racist national anthem, we should have been protesting that thing the whole time. But anyway, during the racist national anthem, which that move was suggested to him by a white military veteran who said that if you're going to protest during the national anthem, we veterans, man, we're going to be very upset. So maybe if you kneel, that would seem less disrespectful. Yeah, well, we see how that worked out. If Kaepernick was treated that way by the NFL for that protest, which he bent over backwards trying to be not disrespectful with, if the same NFL that did that to Colin Kaepernick paid Kendrick Lamar for his Super Bowl performance, how rebellious could it have been, right? Some people have said that the performance was a subversive performance, or that the message he was delivering with the performance was subversive. Well, okay, let's look at what subversive means, because I like words and I think their meanings are important, and so should you. So, what does subversive mean? It means seeking or intending to subvert an established system or institution. That means to undermine it, to weaken it, right? Similar words are disruptive, troublemaking, inflammatory, insurgent, insurrectionary. There's that word again. But what about Kendrick's performance served to subvert the capitalist system and the imperialist institutions and the white supremacy and the patriarchy and the sexism and the xenophobia and the what's the other word? Oh, homophobia, transphobia, the ableism. What about his performance served to subvert the systems and the imperialist institutions that oppress us here and around the world? Did his performance disrupt the Super Bowl? Did his performance disrupt the NFL? Now, of course, the football fans who didn't like his performance are saying that it was inflammatory and troublemaking. But I mean, okay, look, can we be serious? They say that about everything they don't like, especially when Black people are doing it, right? So, and just because something makes some white people angry, it doesn't mean that it's revolutionary or subversive. It just means that a lot of those folks are hypocrites and snowflakes. That's all that means. But the performance didn't disrupt the regular business of the NFL or any of the sponsors who paid billions of dollars with a B for those terrible ads. Remember when we used to watch the Super Bowl because the ads for the Super Bowl were so imaginative and new and funny? There were the new ads that were going to be played after the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl was where the ads were introduced, right? And it used to be a big deal because corporations paid ridiculous amounts of money, and they still do, even more now, to produce these ads. So the ads were, in the past, they had been inventive, and some of them were actually kind of artistic, and they're usually very funny and memorable in some way, right? And of course, they're ads. So they're trying to get you to buy something, because that's what ads are in a capitalist system. That's what they're for. They're not to give you any information that you need for your life. Ads in a capitalist system exist to make you buy things. That's it. But at least in the past, Madison Avenue and the corporations put a little bit of effort into creating these ads. Today, they just give the NFL a bunch of money and push out a bunch of garbage like what we've seen with these ads in the past years. And I hope you have noticed that more and more of the ads, at least now, I didn't watch last year. I don't think I watched the year before. Whatever year Philadelphia went to the Super Bowl before, I think I watched that year. But because, I got a soft spot for Philly because of my late husband, and his soft spot for Philly because he was from New Jersey and he never watched football other than when the Eagles were playing. So yeah, I've got a little soft spot for Philly, and they working class folks. So that's also enough. Okay, so the ads, from what I have noticed, even with college football, the ads have gotten more and more militaristic in topic. Like there are more ads advertising military service and the defense contractors that are producing and providing the hardware, the bombs, the warfighter equipment that are providing the next generation battlefield. Did y'all see the ad? I think it was for the US Marines, where they literally have like an AI creation of a cityscape, and they've got Marines being dropped out of a craft somewhere onto a beach, and they're armed and they're, tramping through this AI generated emerging cityscape, and the ominous voice in the background is saying things like, oh, to meet the threats of the 21st century. Like, there are no threats against the United States. People in the rest of the world really just want the United States to leave them alone. That there are no like active threats to people in the rest of the world, are not sitting around going, I wonder how we can invade and destroy the United States. That is the narrative that the State Department, the White House, the media are giving you, and has always given you, about the need for so much military spending and military hardware and so many military contractors, right? That's what they tell us, that everybody else around the world hates us because of our freedom, and they're actively trying to destroy the United States because of our freedom. No, that's actually not true, y'all. That's a lie. The rest of the world really just wants the United States to go home, stay home, and leave them alone. Don't come visit. Don't do drop by. No, don't send gifts. Do not recognize our birthday. We do not need your diplomatic recognition. Leave us alone. The rest of the world wants the United States to stop being the so-called police of the rest of the world, because nobody else in another country needs the United States to interfere in their internal issues that people in other countries have every right to work out on their own. For example, with the situation in Syria, I get a lot of people heard things or were told things by the US media about Bashir al-Assad gassing his own people. Well, that's a lie. It was a lie that was repeated over and over again by every major US media outlet, just like it was a lie when every leader that the US government had a hand in carrying out a coup against, the same media apparatus would come out and tell the same kinds of lies about that leader. Didn't matter who the leader was. If it was Iraq, the lies were that, Saddam Hussein and his army were killing the people. Saddam Hussein was buying Viagra to feed it to the army to commit mass rapes. Libya, the same thing was said about Muammar Gaddafi. He's killing his own people. Oh, the army is going into the hospital and then throwing the babies out of the incubators. And the same thing was said about Hamas. The exact same thing. So when the US media is telling you that Bashir al-Assad gassed his own people, but then one of the people who were responsible for investigating claims of misuse of chemical weapons actually went to Syria to investigate the claims, a few of the investigators broke ranks from the official narrative and said there is no evidence that he did that. He couldn't have done that because the material that we found doesn't even produce the kind of damage that these people claim that he produced. There was no way he could have gassed his people, not with this stuff. No, somebody put this in. This was not. And interestingly enough, one of those investigators mysteriously disappeared. So the media tells us these lies about leaders in other countries always plotting to destroy the United States. And we get that all of the time. And then we think we're relaxing and we're watching our favorite annual community sporting event, football. And the Super Bowl is a big deal in this country. And then we get from the Super Bowl this reinforcement that we need all of this militarism. We get it from the overt militarism displayed at the Super Bowl with the singing of the anthem and the unfurling of the gigantic American flag and the flyover of the military aircraft, the same aircraft that drop bombs on people. Yes, they do still use aircraft to drop bombs on people. They don't just use drones exclusively. No, they still use aircraft. The U.S. military does. So the same aircraft that's dropping bombs on people in other countries is flying over a football game. So we get the reinforcement that we need militarism, that this militarism makes us strong, it makes us powerful. We have to repel all of these enemies, but no, there are nobody around the world is the resistance we see to the United States around the world is resistance of the people to constant US interference in their affairs, US denial of their democracy, US violation of their sovereignty, and US violation of their human rights with militarism like bombing and such. So we are deeply indoctrinated by the need for these things, right? These are things that we take for granted that are just a part of us being American and being in America. And if we're really good patriotic Americans, we should embrace these things, right? And then here you have Kendrick Lamar being paid by the NFL, who is also, taking money from the military and the military contractors to run these ads and, for the flyovers. The NFL is all in on this. I would love to go into the history of the national anthem being played at football games or being sung at football games. Most people don't know that has not always been done. Having the national anthem sung with both teams present, standing on the sideline, covering their hearts with their hand. That is not something that has always been done in the NFL and in most sporting events in this country until a few decades ago. But we don't have time for that history. But I just want to make the point, dear listeners, that Kendrick Lamar's performance, as fantastic as it was, didn't undermine, challenge, didn't call for a change to any of what we just established the NFL is involved in and the ideology that they prop up. His performance didn't challenge any of that. Not only that, but the one person out of all of the 400 dancers in the production on the field during halftime who did do a revolutionary and disruptive and insurgent and subversive act when he pulled the Sudanese and Palestine flags out from underneath his clothes and he ran around on that field from staff and security who were trying to catch him and snatch those flags away. Do you know what Kendrick Lamar said about that man? That he didn't have anything to do with him. He didn't know anything about him. Kendrick Lamar, the person that everybody is saying performed a revolutionary, subversive halftime show at the Super Bowl, distanced himself from someone who actually carried out a subversive, revolutionary act of solidarity with the people of Sudan and Palestine. What kind of revolutionary does not support an actual revolutionary act? And why have so many people who continue to insist that what Kendrick did was so revolutionary completely ignore the one man who actually did something revolutionary? See, I think people are confused, dear listeners, about the significance of this performance because people don't know what revolutionary really means anymore. And I don't think that's for lack of real revolutionary work to reference. I think that's because every time we revolutionaries organize ourselves to challenge this system, what does the system do? It uses every aspect of its apparatus to silence, marginalize, criminalize, and delegitimize us, our work, our goals. And the system has gone so far as to imprison and kill us for speaking the truth and for standing up for our people against this system's oppressions. Which before I go any further, dear listeners, I have to tell you again, we're in the middle of, well, not the middle of, we're pretty much at the beginning of this pledge drive. And what I just said about what this system does to revolutionaries, real ones, who actually do the work, is a very important reason for you to contribute to, donate to, support, and sustain Darker Than Blue and WPFW. This is the reason why you do it today, because you don't hear this kind of history about revolutionary struggle and the way the US government has worked to suppress revolutionary struggle, voices, activities, and people for decades. And not just historically, how they continue to do it. So if you are listening right now and you have never donated to WPFW before, please, I am asking you to donate right now. You can call let me go back up to the top of my thing. You can call WPFW to donate at 202-588-9739 or 800-222-9739. You can donate through Cash App at $WPFWFM. You can text your donation to the number 801-801. Just text the letters WPFWFM. Follow the link to donate, and you can donate online at WPFWFM.org. First-time listeners, if you've never donated before, now is your time to show your support for the station that provides you the information you need to stay informed. And if you have donated before and you're a sustainer, please renew your sustaining donation for WPFW and Darker Than Blue. And if you can do a new sustaining donation, if you can be a new sustaining member by spreading out your donations over equal small payments over the course of a year, that would be fantastic. And we are at 28 minutes past the hour, and let's see where we are. We've got 380 to go in this hour. Thank you all so much. You all have been fantastic. And I have to thank Anonymous from, where was it? From Mitchellville earlier, who donated to Resistance Radio. We just had to get off the air before I saw his donation. I just wanted to make sure I let him know that we appreciate his donation, John Kane in Resistance Radio and I from earlier today. Thank y'all so much. Connie Finley, Robin Watts, Suzette Allison, and Marvin, folks from Washington, D.C., Silver Spring, and Fort Washington. Thank you for your donations to the shows here on WPFW for Fantastic Friday. We've got $380 to go in this hour. You can absolutely do it. Let's go, folks. So let's get back to this conversation about Kendrick Lamar and this Super Bowl performance. I am not, folks, condemning his performance. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not that. No, none of that. It was a fantastic performance. It was artistic. It was entertaining. I liked it. I liked how petty it was. I thought it was fantastic that Serena came out and crip walked on the diss track directed at her ex, who was stalkerish with her. But I am bothered. I am very bothered, dear listeners, by the fact that Kendrick Lamar basically, I don't know if outed is the right word, but he absolutely accused Drake of being a pedophile on the biggest stage that you could possibly do that on. And the conversation a week later is still about Kendrick's performance, but not about, okay, who are we talking about that Drake committed these acts against? Who are his victims? This is the other problem with the way people are talking about this performance, because Kendrick Lamar did exactly what he should have done. If these things are true, yeah, call him out. Absolutely. Call him, and I can't tell you whether these things are true or not, because I honestly pay no attention to Drake as a performer or as a person. I just not my thing. I did no judgment. But this is the other thing that really bothers me. So we are talking about accusations of child abuse, of assaulting children. Why are we not talking about that? And now that I really think about it, listeners, why are all of the folks who made such a big deal about protecting children from so-called trans folks, why are they not upset about the accusations of pedophilia that came from that performance? Do you see how messed up this situation is with this performance? People are claiming that the performance was revolutionary and it wasn't. And the person who actually carried out a revolutionary act, everybody is ignoring. Like even the person who everybody said carried out the revolutionary performance, distanced himself from the revolutionary, made an accusation against someone for sexually assaulting minors, and nobody is talking about that. Not even the people who literally made a whole political movement out of allegedly protecting minors, even though the thing they started their little political protect the children movement with was a lie. Remember Comet Pizza, y'all? Remember Pizzagate? Yes. So the very people who created Pizzagate and created this whole ridiculous narrative about trans people are involved in a plot and queer people are involved in a plot to have access to our children in the bathrooms, have said nothing about the accusations against Drake of assaulting underage girls. The entire response to this performance at the Super Bowl has been so confused and such a mess, and it's been so disappointing. But you know what? It's not a surprise. It really isn't, because people, I think, are confused about the significance of this performance because they don't know what revolutionary means anymore. And they don't know what revolutionary means anymore because of the way the empire has responded to actual revolutionary people, organizations, and acts. I mean, you saw what the NFL did to the one brother who all he did was pull out some flags and run around trying not to get caught to make sure as many people in that stadium saw those flags as possible. The NFL banned that brother for life from every NFL stadium in the league. And his response was, I mean, that's nice. Okay, good for them. But I promise you, I can watch a football game on television if I want to. That's what, when he was interviewed, finally, I can't remember the outlet that interviewed him. That's what that brother said. And he looked surprised when the interviewer said to him, the NFL has banned you for life from all of its stadiums. And the look on that man's face was, word? For real? That's what they did? Like, they didn't even tell him. The NFL didn't even tell him, you can never come. It was the strangest thing I had ever seen. But that man did an actual revolutionary act, and people are not talking about that man. They're talking about how revolutionary that performance was. They're not talking about Drake's victims. They're talking about how revolutionary that performance was, and that's weird. If I didn't understand that the empire spent so much of its law enforcement, legal, and media apparatus to raid the offices, homes, and properties of anti-imperialist labor and radical Black organizers and organizations through actions like the Palmer raids for decades. What are the Palmer raids? Real quick. There were a series of arrests and deportations of suspected radicals that took place in 1919 and 1920. The raids were led by Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer, and they were a part of the phenomenon known as the Red Scare. World War One, which led a lot of people to embrace strong nationalistic and anti-immigrant sympathies in the United States. The Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which led a lot of people here to fear that immigrants, particularly from Russia, in Southern Europe and Western Europe, were coming here with the intention to overthrow the US government. And by the end of World War I, which created a serious problem in the American economy because there were no more weapons needed. So the American economy basically ground to a halt. That's how the United States made a lot of its money, through war. That's what created the middle class in this country, war, mostly. Okay. But so by the end of World War I, there was no more need for all of this war production. So the demand for weapons and bombs to be made and manufactured, no, but they didn't need that stuff anymore. So unemployment started to rise. And a lot of workers joined labor unions around the end of World War I. Labor was a big deal in this country before now. So this history is one of the ways that workers became more inclined toward labor unions when their livelihoods were threatened by the end of World War I and the end of the war economy in the United States. So labor strikes, including the Boston police strike in September 1919, you got to look that up. That's why I told you about it, because I want you to look it up, contributed to fears that radicals intended to spark a revolution. Now, that is just really strange. That in a country where you know the economy was only propped up because of the war and the manufacturing that was happening to contribute to the war effort. And when the war is over, you know that economy, that war economy is no longer needed. So those jobs are gone. So instead of the US government and corporations responding to workers being angry that they lost their jobs or were losing their wages to loss of need for production by creating jobs in other sectors or even providing a temporary safety net for people until the capitalists figured something out, some way to put people back to work. Instead, no, they responded, they being the US government and corporations, responded to worker discontent by saying, oh, now they're going to be radical. And the Europeans, the radicals, the Russians are going to come over here and cause them, convince these angry workers to overthrow the government, when all you had to do was give people jobs and a decent wage, then you wouldn't have to worry about. Do you understand what I hope you're following, because I have to stop sometimes because I want to cuss and the FCC says I can't do that. So, but do you understand where this comes from? Workers say I should be unemployed because I want to live somewhere with a roof and I like eating. And my kids like clothes. So does my wife. I like clothes too. So I would like a job that pays a decent wage so we can afford these things for myself and my family. And the government's response to workers saying the obvious is, oh, you are influenced by Russian radicals. I'm going to lock you up. Which is exactly what the government did. The government raided the headquarters of radical organizations in response to workers joining labor unions and being really angry at the government not doing anything about rising unemployment. And then there were some self-proclaimed anarchists who were mailing bombs to prominent Americans, like politicians and capitalists, like U.S. State's Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer and U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice, who was also the former Massachusetts Supreme Court Chief Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. So the government, in response to all of these things, raided the headquarters of radical organizations, which were mostly labor unions, and arrested thousands of people, several thousand people. A lot of them were immigrants, and they were deported. The largest raids occurred on January 2nd, 1920, when over 4,000 people were arrested nationwide. None of the people swept up in those arrests or deportations were ever found to be responsible for sending those mail bombs. And there are still a lot of questions, even today, about, was that really true? Did they really find? I have my doubts, but let me stick to the facts and not go off on conjecture. Attorney General Palmer warned the nation that the Department of Justice had uncovered plots against the lives of over 20 federal and state officials as part of a planned May Day, which is on May 1st, celebration. May Day, also known as International Workers' Day, was celebrated by many socialists, communists, anarchists, and unionists, even in the United States at that time. The failure of those plots that Palmer said they uncovered to materialize when May Day came and went, coupled with increased criticism of the Palmer raids because of the violence and the mass deportations and the lack of due process and the lies by the state. Because once May Day came and went and those plots that Palmer said they uncovered didn't happen, nothing happened, and nobody was arrested because nothing happened, then people kind of started to realize, wait a minute, I don't think this government is telling us the truth about this. And why are they deporting all of these people? They haven't done anything but be in a union. And so what? They're from Russia, but they came here before. And do you see what I So the failure of these plots to materialize, coupled with the increased criticism of the raids, brought the raids to an end. But it may also have ended the widespread celebration of May Day in the US, because we don't recognize May Day in the US today the way even American workers used to, and the way workers all over the world still recognize May Day. You haven't seen a May Day celebration until you've seen Cuba's May Day. So, oh my goodness, I've never seen anything like that, and I cannot wait to go back to see another Cuban May Day celebration. Amazing. I also should mention that the Red Summer of 1919 also occurred during this time. Red Summer was the year when there were brutal, violent, repulsive, just an unleashed wave of white racist rage against Black people, largely against Black soldiers coming back from World War I with their uniforms on, believing that because they fought for freedom for somebody else in another country, they should be able to come home and demand their freedom here. And white people made sure to let them know that's not the way it works here. We don't care what you did for anybody in another country. You will stay in your place here. So when Black soldiers were returning from World War I and were being attacked while in uniform by racist white mobs, sometimes while on or near the bases where they were stationed, by racist mobs, that Black men thought they were equal to them because they served in the US military, and the white folks were not having that in this country. White people really wanted to make sure that Black men returning from fighting for somebody else's freedom understood that back here, nope, they had none. So Black people who were opposed to World War I were attacked as being influenced by Russia. All workers who were opposed to war and who were demanding worker protections and better working conditions and better wages, they were branded as being influenced by Russian agents or radicals. They faced illegal and fascist repression by local law enforcement and the FBI. The court system was used against them to revoke their passports or to deport them, as was the case with W.E.B. Du Bois, Paul Robeson, Claudia Jones. Many anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist labor organizations and organizers like the Industrial Workers of the World, or the IWW, or the Wobblies, as they are also known, and organizers like Big Ben Fletcher, who led Local 8 of the IWW for 10 years. And he faced attacks from the state and it was imprisoned, as were many members of IWW, after being hastily found guilty of charges filed against them under the Espionage Act because they were in a labor union. They weren't even really advocating against the war. They were advocating for workers' rights. And then Black people who fought in World War I, believing that we could prove our loyalty to this nation in that way, had to come home from fighting for somebody else's freedom, only to be reminded that we don't have freedom here. And they had to fight white Americans who wanted to uphold the same fascist oppression against Black people in the US that Black soldiers had just fought against in Europe. Right? So this is where a lot of this modern day Russiagate, everybody who opposes US militarism is influenced by Russia. Everybody who opposes US foreign policy is influenced by Russia. This is where a lot of this comes from. This is not new. So the US government hasn't stopped using these tactics to silence, marginalize, criminalize, and delegitimize actual radical organizations and people since then. Look at what the government did to student anti-war organizations during the Vietnam era, to the American Indian movement, to the Black Panther Party for self-defense, to Mark Clark and Fred Hampton, to Assata Shakur. Just in case you don't know, she was framed. She didn't shoot anybody, just in case you didn't know. Sundiata Acoli, Leonard Peltier, Reverend Joy Powell. You can look those names up if you're not familiar with who they are and why I'm bringing them up now. I hope you do. You should. But the reason so many don't know what revolutionary means is that this country has been consistent and unrelenting in suppressing the voices of anti-capitalists, anti-imperialists, and especially us Black radicals. And we're not radical because Russia or China or anybody else told us to be radical. We're radical because we know we deserve better than what this system has provided us since before we came here. That's why we're radical, because we want to radically change this system from what it is now. That is what revolution means. Revolution means to effect drastic change. So we stay confused about what real revolution is because the people who are telling you the truth about it are silenced, thrown in prison, killed. And the people who support the empire by doing meaningless but entertaining and even skillful arty things that look like they are challenging the status quo, but they're really just giving you a moment of emotional rebellion without actually contributing to any real in-person, in real life organizing to carry out a real revolution, organizing to entirely and completely change this system. And people who benefit from this system, folks like, I know y'all gonna be mad, but folks like Kendrick Lamar and SZA and Serena Williams and Samuel Jackson and Jay-Z, who brought Lamar to the Super Bowl through his deal with the NFL, and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, who approved this halftime show. They don't want this system to be changed. They want to keep getting their money from this system while giving you empty rap lyrics and meaningless visual stimulation, as fantastically choreographed and entertaining as it was, while very artfully done, translates into nothing fundamentally changing for you and me. Now, I want to remind you with the 10 minutes we have left, dear listeners, that we are in pledge drive here at WPFW. This is a station where you get to hear voices against historical erasure. This is why I talk about history all of the time, because I know we don't know it. And I'm not hearing it anywhere else. So I figure if I'm annoyed at the history that I am not hearing anywhere else, that I'm going to use the little bit of a platform that I have to tell whatever history I think is important. So that's what you're hearing here on WPFW. We're also countering disinformation. The reason I bring up what Democrats do in regard to what Trump is doing is because there is a lot of misinformation about what Trump is doing. Like people saying that what he's doing is unprecedented. Listen, words have meaning. And unprecedented means it is something that we have never seen before. And that is actually not true in a lot of these cases. So when we talk about these issues, when I bring up what the Democrats have done compared to what Trump is doing right now, I'm not doing it to absolve Trump of his responsibility for his awfulness. No, I'm trying to remind people or inform people for the first time, if they didn't know, that believing that Trump is uniquely evil in doing these things, that he is the only person who ever had the awful idea to do these things, that is not true. Something like this has been done before, and all Trump is doing is taking what has already been done a terrible step farther. That's it. That's what you're hearing, the countering of disinformation. So when people are talking about DEI causing airplane crashes, that's why I talk about, no, this is what DEI really is. This is who it really benefits. And no, these plane crashes are caused by something else that, guess what, the Democrats are actually responsible for too. Journalism that is uncompromised. Uncompromised. I tell you the truth, whether I like all of it or not. I do not want to give Donald Trump credit for doing anything right, but I had to admit that he did get the ceasefire done with a phone call. Now, in that, of course, we had to talk about why he did it, not because he loves Palestinians. Certainly, we see that as true. But we had to tell you the truth that, yeah, there's a ceasefire because Donald Trump did something that for 15 months, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris refused to do. Unbought, independent, honest journalism. That is what you hear on WPFW. And obviously, free speech and radical thought. Every show on this network is not radical. And that's great. That is actually fantastic, because where else are you going to turn on a radio station and hear a range of political thought, hear incredible music from hip hop to jazz to classical to American standards, and then also hear Black radical socialist, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, pan-African analysis and thought? You're not going to hear any of that anywhere else, all in one place other than WPFW 89.3. So if you have not donated yet, please do it now. Please pick up your phone and call. Oh, go way back up to the top. This is a lot of talking. And call 202-588-9739, 800-222-9739. You can text your donation to the number 801-801. Just text the letters WPFWFM. Follow the link that you get sent back. Takes 10 seconds and donate. You can text to donate. You can donate through Cash App, $ WPFWFM. If you use Cash App, it is so easy to send your support to WPFW right now. And you can donate online via the web, WPFWFM.org. Click donate, make your contribution right now. We have, in the last 6 minutes, $100 to go. You, dear listeners, are amazing. Ren in Washington, D.C., thank you. Anonymous in New Carrollton, Maryland, thank you. Anonymous all the way up in Brooklyn, New York, thank you. Gustavus in Bowie, Maryland, thank you, comrade. I appreciate you so much. In the last few minutes here, I want to give you all another little piece of something that you only get on WPFW, and that is that we are a lifeline for community connection. We are more than a radio station. We are a sanctuary for community. We're a place where people come together to share resources and strengthen bonds in an era of increasing division. We provide community resources like these, like the African Diaspora and Heritage Committee of Montgomery College in Tacoma Park is presenting a discussion with Mr. Peter Bailey, who is a longtime journalist, activist, and one-time assistant to Malcolm X. And this event is taking place on Tuesday, February 18th from 2:30 to 4 p.m. at the Montgomery College Tacoma Park campus in room CF101. For more information, to request a Zoom link or to request a parking pass, call 240-567-5090. And tomorrow, I know today is Valentine's Day, but take your sweetheart to Baltimore tomorrow. The Black Alliance for Peace Baltimore is saying, don't panic, join the planning. On February 15th at Payne Memorial AME Church, which is at 1714 Madison Avenue in Baltimore, Maryland. They are having a town hall on domestic open-air prisons, Maryland's internal colonies. Doors open at 12:30. The event is from 1 to 3. Food and childcare is provided. Masks are required. This is what we do at WPFW. We not only provide you the information that you need here on the radio, but we also provide community to you so that you can take this information and learn what to do with it. But I'm out of time for Darker Than Blue this week. If you're watching on Black Liberation Media, stay tuned for The Dark Room in Lukman Nation. If you're listening on the radio, thank you so much. Stay tuned for News Views. Peace, if you are willing to fight for it. And we sure do here on WPFW 89.3. There we go. Hey, yeah, I'm working on my little transition. I'll get it right one of these days. Yeah, and I just completely forgot that I got the overhead light on too. I don't care. Look, this has been a crazy Friday, and I'm really glad that you all have hung out with me for the rest of this Friday. Welcome to the dark room. Wait a minute. This light is about. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Oh, I'm glad I put my pants on. Welcome to the dark room, the after party of Darker Than Blue, if you will, here in Lukman Nation. Welcome everybody here on Black Liberation Media. Ooh, Kamathi says hi. He's making an unusual appearance. We're trying to get him to play with toys. I got a bark box for him, and they send you like 4 or 5 little different toys, and he doesn't pay any attention to them unless I put a treat in the toy somehow. And he gets the treat, and then he doesn't give a shit about the toys. So this is probably going to be the last bark box that I have spent $25 on trying to get this dog to play with some damn toys, and he just won't do it. But so yeah, the timing is always weird, especially during pledge drive. It's always hard to get all of that stuff into that hour to do a pitch, to do the promos, all that kind of stuff. And I almost got to the perfect transition, but I just want to say, I finally really did get a chance to look at the donations, and thank you for those of you. I know a couple of you did donate who watch. Thank you very much. I appreciate you so much. So let me get into the rest of this thing, because like I said, people don't know what words mean anymore. So they keep using words and they keep saying things and they don't realize that, okay, you're using that word wrong, or you don't realize that what you're saying is actually not true because you don't understand what that word means. So I figure, all right, let's talk about why the word unprecedented, when we're talking about Trump's behavior, particularly in the case of the buyouts for the federal employees, why that is actually not unprecedented. Okay. But first, before we get into that, let me do this, because I hate when I forget that I do a whole show for an hour and you all are in here and you're making comments in your chat, and I don't get to look at those comments while I'm doing Darker Than Blue, because I have to pay attention to the engineer in the studio. So I can't pay attention to the chat. So I want to make sure I get over here in this chat and I say hello to y'all. And I didn't get a chance to do my tablet where I have my teleprompter set up so I can be looking at you while I'm talking and reading from the thing. I like that a lot better than looking up, but I just didn't have time to. I told you today was just weird on the time. So hey, Rouse Pasta Sauce, what up? Eric, Berkeley, James, Leah, Phil, Terry, McClubbin, Red Sea, C. Nicole, let's see, David Silberg, Monty Nile, Joshua Ingram, Chichimacha, Door of L, Warren Register. Where we going? It start with words. Let's go. Let me make sure I have everybody. Winimo Pawaja. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. Who else? Who else is in here? Who else do we have? Nene. What's going on? See you. What's going? What got Red Sea? I got you. Brianna Arabia, Sugar Sham, Alex. DeHuma Boutique, I think that's DeHuma. If it's not, please forgive me. Or maybe it's DeJuma. Maybe I just pronounce it exactly the way it's spelled for once. I don't know. Forgive me if I mispronounced it. CBC voter, what's going on? Christy Z, good to see you. BL, hey. Let's see. Let me go down. Let me 40 J Blaze. MJ set 93, Yipper 99, Brittany Bowman, Dre with without. That's make sure I get that right. 2Fs, I think that's no, it's not. AZ. Oh, this is so exciting. This is a very nice roster. I like this roster very much. Pamela Jones, Swery, Ferry, what's going on? Thank you all so much for joining me over here in the dark room. Oh, Afrogami, one last one. And wait a minute. Oforiwa. Thank you. Let me get that right. Thank y'all so much. All right. Let's talk about Bill Clinton. So I really feel like the lack of knowledge that I'm seeing of political reality extends to like ignorance of Democrat political history. I really do believe that's true. And this is why people don't know that Trump is copying a lot of things. I shouldn't say a lot. because people get stuck on individual words. It's already happened in the chat. Already saw it. People get stuck, on so let me not say a lot, because people are going to be, well, no, it wasn't a lot. It was just this certain number. Okay, all right. So it wasn't a lot. But Trump is copying some things that Democrats have done. That is just true. Let me close that. There we go. That is just true, regardless of whether things were done exactly the way they were done before. The fact that somebody did it before, and he is just taking what was done before and like covering it in his own shit and throwing it up against the wall. It's not. So this is what I'm talking about. We talked about how the Clinton administration is responsible for the immigration legislation that Trump is using to carry out the ICE raids that have been done before, but not in such a, I guess, for a lot of people who really just were not paying attention politically to the 90s, or just weren't there, were not here then, and didn't know what Clinton did with that immigration policy and what Democrats and Republicans have done since then with that immigration policy. So even the U.S. media had to admit that Trump's announcement of a plan to ethnically cleanse the remaining Palestinians from Gaza and take it and hold it wasn't something that Trump thought up all on his own. The same plan, the exact same plan. So Trump was repeating something that Biden offered to the very same people in private months earlier. Somehow people didn't seem to care that Biden offered to ethnically cleanse Gaza for Israel, as Kamala Harris was claiming that they were working tirelessly toward a ceasefire to get you to vote for her. We told you that was a lie, but folks didn't believe us until Reuters proved that we were right. But of course, that was only after Trump held the press conference to make the same ethnic cleansing offer publicly that Biden made privately, right? So color me not surprised at all that there's yet another example of Trump doing something Democrats have done before that people don't want to know about. But of course, I'm going to tell you because I'm fucking petty. This time, the point is made not by me. I am not the one. Somebody brought this to me. And I'm so glad that they did. The point is being made here by Reason magazine. Now, if you're not familiar with Reason is a magazine published by libertarians. So it is not something that I would normally be reading. But every once in a while, I do read Reason because every once in a while, the libertarians will tell the truth about something. And then their response is typical libertarian bullshit, right? But they did write this article. And I thought this was pretty funny because, the libertarians stay trolling. They do. They stay trolling the Democrats, not for good reasons, because the libertarians are right wing. Let's be clear. All right. They prioritize private property. Regardless of what else they say they are for capitalism and private property. So when you come across libertarianisms who are like, oh, we're opposed to this war, they are literally opposed to that particular war. They're not anti-war at all. They are certainly not anti-imperialist. All right. So be clear about who the libertarians are. They don't agree with you, even if they don't like the same war that you don't like. So Reason magazine published this article, and the title of the article is, Will Elon Musk Cut as Much Government as Al Gore Did? I didn't make this up. I didn't do. I'm going to prove it to you. Where's the article? What did I do with it? What did I do with it? Oh no! Shoot. I think I closed it. No, I didn't. I did not close it. I was about to say, I know I didn't do something that dumb. when I don't close articles when I know I'm doing a live. Here we go. There you go. Reason Magazine. This article was published just a few days ago on the 7th. Let me go over here and change my, there I am, so you can see my amusement as we go through this article together. Okay, let me increase so you can read along. Yes, very big. Let us commence. After winning a return to the White House, President Donald Trump tapped Tesla CEO Elon Musk to head the Department of Government Efficiency, or the DOGE, a body tasked with making the government less costly and more efficient. It is an arduous and unenviable task. It is also not the first such endeavor. In the 1990s, then Vice President Al Gore undertook a similar effort. What can we learn from Gore's experience? Let me go over here to my notes to see. Okay, let's just make sure I didn't have another comment in there. Not yet. Okay. As president, Bill Clinton famously declared that, quote, the era of big government is over, end quote. Let's stop right there. Bill Clinton was president after Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan made a big deal about big government. I mean, that man talked about fucking big government as much as he talked about goddamn welfare queens. And that was made up too. The welfare queens. So you had, what was it, 8 years of Reagan going on and on about how government was too big. And this was just a conservative thing. Every time the conservatives got on television, they talked about three things during that, during the Reagan years. They talked about they talked about crime or drugs. They talked about welfare cheats, welfare queens, welfare recipients needing to work, welfare recipients being lazy, welfare recipients buying steak with their food stamps. I don't give a damn. Get some steak. You better get a porterhouse. You deserve a porterhouse once a month on those food stamps. Yes, you do. And a lobster, if that's your thing. Or the best tofu you can. Yes, you do. You deserve those things, whether you are on assistance or whether you work. Everybody deserves things that they enjoy. Just because you are poor, it doesn't mean you should never get to enjoy something you like. That's just hate. That's all it is. But whenever the Republicans were on television during the Reagan years, it was all about crime or drugs, welfare, costing us too much money because of the lazy welfare queens and the cheats, and all of the women on welfare, all the black women on welfare having abortions. And big government. That's all these people talked about. So then here comes Bill Clinton. After the years of Reagan throwing red meat to his base about all of the things that the Negroes were doing to make life difficult for you good whites. Because remember, Reagan is the guy who kicked his campaign off in Philadelphia, fucking Mississippi. Look it up. Look up why that matters. So here you have, and obviously, blatantly, everybody knew it was racist presidency of Ronald Reagan, and you got Bill Clinton coming after that, repeating the same shit Reagan said about the same people. And it is out of that restructuring of the Democratic Party that the Democratic leadership, what were they called? I keep forgetting what the hell, Democratic Leadership Convention or Commission or cabal. That's a bunch of fucking crackers. That's what they did. They created a strategy to change their party's platform, to change the focus of the Democratic Party's platform from focusing on equality and justice for all people in this country, raising up the issues of civil rights, raising up the issue of women's rights, raising up the issues of inequality in every aspect of society, in equal access for the disabled, in rights for women, in rights for queer and trans. These were things that at one time the Democratic Party said they were committed to, and the policies of their platform would reflect these priorities. The Democratic Leadership Council said the Reagan presidency was a wake-up call. People were excited about that presidency. They didn't seem to differentiate between racist fucking white people who liked the racist shit that Ronald Reagan was saying and doing so that they could get rich, compared to everybody else who didn't get rich, who may not have been directly affected by Reagan's racist policies, but were certainly not like, yay, Reagan is our savior. They're like, those people are getting rich. The stockbrokers, the people who already have a lot of money are getting rich. We're not. And wait a minute, you're cutting food stamps? You're messing with immigration? You are not, you're busting unions? Wait, you're messing with us. So the Democratic Party understood this, but they did not want to do anything to appeal to the working class that was disenfranchised by Reagan. They wanted to appeal to the moderate Republicans to grow their party with. They intentionally, the Democratic Leadership Council made an intentional, strategic decision to ignore working class Americans. All of us, black, white, gay, straight, woman, women, men, able-bodied, they didn't care. They did not care. If you were poor, they didn't give a shit about you. That was literally their strategy. And if you wanted to be a part of the Democratic Party apparatus, the machine, then you had to agree to that, which meant that if you were a member of those marginalized groups, you had to turn your back on the most affected, marginalized people within your group, which is what happened, which is why the CBC went from an organization that was focused on demanding equality and justice in policy for Black folks to the cesspool of worthless neoliberal Negroes that it is today. Because they bought into the DLC strategy of appealing to the right in this country, not to make anything better. See, if they had decided we're going to appeal to the right to get some corporate money so we can push some more programs that will help more working class, but no, they didn't even, it wasn't even like a Trojan horse plan. It wasn't even like we're going to use them for our purposes. It wasn't anything like that. It was literally, we have to appeal to middle class, conservative leaning white voters in order for us to keep winning against the Republicans. That's literally what the DLC strategy was. So this third way strategy that they came up with, that's what they called it. Third way strategy that the DLC came up with for their party was what Bill Clinton ran on. So when Bill Clinton comes along, the DLC rolls out this strategy and says, this is what your platform will be. You will be tough on crime. You will be tough on welfare. You will be tough on immigration. And you will be tough on government spending, because these are the things that Republican voters are concerned about. So Bill Clinton, when he campaigns, he starts talking about these things. I'm going to be tough on crime. That's where the 94 crime bill came from. I'm going to be tough on immigration. That's where IRA, however you, Bill Clinton's immigration bill, that's where that came from. I'm going to be tough on welfare. That's where Bill Clinton came up with the welfare, what was it called? The Welfare Reform and Personal Responsibility Act. It had a Republican title because they were appealing to Republicans. That came from Bill Clinton. Him saying, I'm going to be tough on welfare, because the Democratic Party's strategy was fuck poor people. So when Bill Clinton says, I'm going to be tough on government spending, he is. He does create this program. He declared, like I said, the era of big government is over, just like Ronald Reagan was saying. Weeks into his term, Clinton had announced a national performance review. It's called an NPR, National Performance Review, to reinvent the government. He put Al Gore in charge of the project, which was later codified into law by the Government Performance and Results Act of 1993. We're going to talk about that point in a minute. We're going to talk about it. A dedicated website said the NPR initiative, later renamed the National Partnership for Reinventing Government, would make government, quote, work better, cost less, and get results Americans care about. Excuse me. The NPR issued its first report in September 1993, which was called From Red Tape to Results, Creating a Government That Works Better and Costs Less. It listed 1,200 recommendations across the entire government that, if implemented, it said could save $108 billion in 5 years, which would be $235 billion in 2024 dollars. Quote, if we follow these steps, we will move much closer to a government that costs less and works better for all of us, the report concluded. It will be leaner, more effective, fairer, and more up to date. It will be a government worth what we pay for it. And perhaps the federal debt, that $4 trillion albatross around the necks of our children and grandchildren, that's not what. Government debt doesn't work like my debt. It doesn't work like your debt. It's not the same as your budget. But that's another show for another day. The debt will slow its rampage. There's not a rampage. And then anyway, Elaine Kamarck, a senior fellow in governance studies at the Brookings Institution, who worked as an advisor to Gore at the time, touted the NPR's accomplishments in testimony before the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform in 2013. She said, quote, we reduced the federal workforce, look at that number, by 426,200 between January 1993 and September 2000. So 7 years. Took them 7 years to reduce the government workforce by almost 500,000 people, making the federal government in 2000 the smallest government since Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, while also yielding $136 billion in savings to the taxpayer, end quote. The government did cut its workforce during the Clinton years, with the overall number of federal employees falling from 3.9 million in January 1993 to 2.75 million in September 2000, suggesting that Kamarck's cited cuts outpaced hiring. So the Clinton and Gore, even over a 7-year period, cut more positions than they hired back. So the point that somebody made in the chat yesterday morning, well, the difference is that these positions aren't going to be refilled. Well, those positions weren't filled either. So that, okay. Let's see, where am I going? Donald Kettle, a Brookings Institution scholar who studied the NPR at the time, told a Senate subcommittee in May 2000 that while some agencies shrank substantially during Clinton's tenure, quote, 3 cabinet departments have grown: commerce, especially to manage the census; the State Department to cope with international to coup people, and justice to oppress people. That was it, to oppress people. But they say to increase the number of guards at federal prisons, to oppress people. That's what. Those cuts also weren't across the board. Since 1993, the reduction in the executive branch workforce, not counting the U.S. Postal Service, because remember, we talked about why the Postal Service is usually not included in any kind of government rifts or whatever last week, amounts to approximately 400,000 jobs, Stephen Barr wrote in the Washington Post in October 2000. The downsizing was fueled by the post-Cold War base closings and budget cuts at the Defense Department, where about 70% of the civil service cuts took place. A 1999 Government Accountability Office report expressed skepticism about the claimed savings. They said that NPR claimed savings from agency-specific recommendations that could not be fully attributed to its efforts, the report found, as the Office of Management and Budget generally did not distinguish NPR's contributions from other initiatives or factors that influenced budget reductions at the agencies we reviewed. The GAO also identified 2 instances where OMB counted at least part of the estimated savings twice, including 2 recommendations that constituted potentially up to $1.4 billion in estimated savings on their own. So even under Clinton Gore, the so-called good guys, the so-called people that are better than the Republicans, they lie about their shit too. So that's what that's like. Yeah, they did cut this many positions from the government. They did cut this many, jobs from the workforce, but their claims about the amount of money they saved is a little dubious, very dubious is what they were saying. But they did cut this 400,000 plus 426,000 jobs from the workforce. So this article says still there have certainly been more profligate presidencies. During Clinton's tenure, the amount of federal debt held by the public barely budged, rising from $3.3 trillion to $3.4 trillion. The government even ran budget surpluses for several years, contributed hundreds of billions of dollars toward paying down the debt. Can Musk and Trump achieve that much? Reason magazine says it would be a hard lift for Trump to match what the Democrats did over 7 years. Asked before the 2024 election how much he thought he could cut from the federal budget, which currently tops $6.8 trillion, Musk, and I have to stop right there. I don't know why anybody was asking Elon Musk anything about what he was going to do before the election. Why are you talking to him? This is why we say the U.S. media is trash. The U.S. media, the U.S. corporate media, the U.S. established media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Reuters, Associated Press, the LA Times, all of them, the Atlantic magazine, the Washington Post magazine, what's the other one? No, I think it's the Atlantic that I'm thinking about. All of them are scribes for the empire. So whatever they say, which is why I always tell you have to, yes, they're lying, but read the articles. Read the entire article, because they always slide a kernel of truth in there right around the end. And unless you read the article, you will never realize that they know they're lying to you. They know. So I don't know why they're asking Elon Musk what he is going to do before the election even happens. So I don't know how anybody knew he would. He was a private citizen, wasn't an employee, wasn't a part of the campaign. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, but they asked him anyway. I think we could do at least 2 trillion, is what he said. Such a cut would be difficult, but not impossible, said Reason magazine. The 2019 federal budget totaled 4.4 trillion, 5.4 trillion in 2024 dollars. Even adjusting for inflation, Congress could cut 2 trillion and spend only $700 billion less in constant dollars than it did before the COVID-19 pandemic. But Musk walked back his prediction after the election, admitting in January that it was just the best case outcome, and that I think if we try for 2 million, we've got a good shot at getting 1. In a post this week on X, the social media platform he owns, Musk said he was cautiously optimistic he would reach his goal of 4 billion per day in savings from the budget for fiscal year 2026, which would reduce the federal deficit from 2 trillion to 1 trillion. Okay, the GOP hasn't been much help, although entitlements are the biggest deficit drivers. I hate that fucking word. Entitlements is another one of those words that conservatives have used and have weaponized to make the thing they are talking about sound like it's something bad. I am absolutely entitled to my fucking Social Security that I have paid into since I have been working, which has been since I have been 16. So you want to call that an entitlement as if that's a bad thing all you want to. You're not going to make me ashamed of the fact that you owe me my money. Social Security is our money. It is the workers' money. So, yeah, I'm entitled to mine. Uh-huh. So these politicians who talk about welfare as an entitlement, yeah, I should not have to suffer homelessness if I cannot find a job in the richest country this planet has ever seen. I absolutely am entitled to a fucking roof over my head because I'm a human being, just like you. So yes, I am entitled to have an income, even if I cannot find a job because you won't provide a job. I am entitled to a way to put a roof over my head and food in my belly. Yes, I am. And you're not going to make me ashamed of being entitled to being treated like a human being, to having my human rights met. You're not going to make me ashamed to say that I am entitled to have my human rights guaranteed because I'm a human being. Get out of here. We need to stop responding to these Republicans, to these conservatives, and even some of these so-called Democrats, these liberals who pile on, who join into this shaming of people, using these words against us. We need to respond to them with less begging them not to be such dicks, and just respond to them with facts and spite. Just spite. Just go right ahead and be as angry at these motherfuckers as they deserve to see us. All of this politeness, and they don't deserve any respect from us. These politicians, I don't care how long they've been doing the job. They need to get cussed out, just like y'all say some of the slick shit you say to me and Erica when you disagree with us on the radio. Say that shit to these politicians. Give them the same energy some of y'all give us leftists when you don't want to hear what we have to say. I want to see y'all have that much energy for those people who actually are harming you, who actually are making your life a living hell. Give them the same energy. and the same negativity and the same nastiness that you give us when you don't want to hear what we have to say. Anyway, although entitlements are the biggest deficit drivers, the 2024 Republican platform pledged to fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. Now, I don't believe them for 1 second. I don't believe don't believe that. There is similarly no guarantee that Republicans can simply grow the economy enough to outweigh the deficit. Now, remember, this is Reason, a libertarian magazine, and they are framing the Republicans' platform pledge to not cut Social Security and Medicare, and not change the retirement age as if it's a negative thing, because this is what libertarians believe. They don't like entitlements either. This is why I said what I said about libertarians in this magazine. They're not reporting on this as allies of the Republicans or allies of the Democrats. In a weird way, the libertarians kind of hate them both. But they will also use them both to their advantage whenever they feel like they politically can. And in the state races, a lot of libertarian candidates campaigned with or for Republicans this time around, and they usually do this, but they have been known in some state races to hang out with the Democrats if the Democrats are right-leaning enough. So I just want to be clear that the people who are providing this information are not unbiased themselves. They have a clear right-wing bias, right? So that I just wanted to point that out. So they're saying that one tactic Musk has adopted is buyout style offers to federal workers. That, as it happens, is one area where there are direct lessons from the Al Gore experience. Last week, the U.S. Office of Personnel Management sent a mass email to federal employees with a deferred resignation offer. Anyone who accepted the offer could, it said, resign immediately but enjoy full pay and benefits through the end of September. The email listed February 6th as the deadline. A judge delayed it till the 10th. Now the judge has come out and said it's not illegal. It can go forward. And the judge even said that the unions didn't have a legal standing to bring the case against the executive order. That makes no sense because the unions represent the employees. So we're looking at probably additional legal action. We're not sure, but that's where it stands right now. There has been a fair amount of confusion around the proposal, as when OPM sent the message to air traffic controllers, but then clarified that they weren't actually eligible for the deal. The NPR, Clinton and Gore's project, similarly offered federal workers the lesser of $25,000 or the amount of the employee's severance pay to resign. Yes, the Clinton-Gore administration also sent buyout letters to federal workers. There was an effort to reduce the number of middle-level managers. In general, however, the downsizing occurred as a result of individual employees' responses to the buyout the government offered, Kettle said in 2000. There is little knowledge about the resulting skill mix of the federal workforce. They didn't even bother to look at who resigned and what jobs they represented, what job they resigned from. They didn't care. They're just like, get the hell out. There was little advanced planning of what skill mix the federal government needs for the future. Put more bluntly, there was little assurance that they got rid of the dead weight and kept the people with the best skills. Setting aside such specific lessons of the Clinton era effort, the NPR at least offers us an informal benchmark. If Elon Musk cannot bring big government under control, can he at least reduce it as much as Al Gore? Of course, I'm going to give you the link to this article. It would be irresponsible of me if I didn't. So, Reason Magazine, there you go. Reason Magazine lays out that between 1993 and 2000, the Clinton-Gore administration offered federal employees buyout letters. Didn't offer them as much, I guess. I'm not sure if you can compare it one-to-one to what Trump is offering federal employees now. But what we do know is that, like what is happening now, federal employees then, they just took the offer to the tune of $426,200 over 7 years. Now, so far, 65,000 federal employees have voluntarily taken Trump's buyout offer. So that's where the question of whether Musk and Trump and Musk, Trump and Doge and Musk, I don't know what kind of, whether they can meet the same benchmark of over 400 workers eliminated from the government that Clinton and Gore did. Right? So that is interesting. But I would also be irresponsible if I did not point out that there are differences. Even though both administrations have done largely the same thing, there are differences with the way they were done, which I will argue right now. The way the Clinton administration did their buyout was able to be carried out without the chaos because they did do the research, they did some hearings, they investigated, and they passed a law, right? And Trump has done none of that. So let's look at what the differences were in the way these two administrations carried these things out. Now, this is being reported by Al Jazeera. And this was February 7th. Also, I think of same day as the Reason article. Yeah, it was. So this is their fact check. Did Clinton set the precedent for mass federal worker buyouts? Trump fans say his plan for federal worker buyouts is not new. In the early 1990s, Bill Clinton signed an act allowing $25,000 buyouts for federal workers, but was that the same? As unions and Democrats denounced the Trump administration's efforts to slash the federal workforce through worker buyouts, some social media users have said the president's actions parallel those of former President Bill Clinton. This is one of the tweets to all you Democrats freaking out over President Trump's buyout program. And this person is obviously from Europe because of the way they spell the word program. Europeans spell program with two N's and an E. Okay. I present to you a piece of history. L.D. Basler, a retired federal law enforcement officer, wrote on X. His post quoted a 1995 statement Clinton made a year after he signed the Federal Workforce Restructuring Act. I guess Clinton didn't have the authority either when he did it in the 90s because the president was set by Democrats. Another ex-user wrote, "Is that true?" Al Jazeera asks. Under Clinton, the government offered mass buyouts, but there is a key difference with what's happening under President Donald Trump. Under Clinton, a bipartisan Congress overwhelmingly approved Clinton's program following months of review. That is the difference. By contrast, Trump's deferred resignation offer, controversially known as a buyout. Why is it controversially known as a buyout when Clinton did the same thing and you called it a buyout and that wasn't controversial? Emerged within a week of his inauguration with that's true. Trump hasn't done any hearings. There was no studies done. There were no. The Clinton administration, now this is according to David Osborne, an advisor for the Clinton era review that preceded the buyout. See, they called what Clinton did a buyout right here. I didn't say it was controversial. So David Osborne said, quote, "We spent 6 months, involved several hundred federal workers, and made hundreds of recommendations to Clinton and Gore, some of which they accepted, some they didn't." Because Trump didn't do any of that, the status and legality of Trump's program remains unclear. The administration set a midnight February 6th deadline for workers to accept the offer, but a federal judge in Massachusetts blocked that deadline and set a hearing to February 20. And remember, like I said, by now, this article was written before the judge issued their final ruling that says that the Trump's buyouts are not illegal. They can go forward, and the federal workers unions didn't have legal standing to bring the lawsuit. I don't think that's legally true, but I'm not a lawyer and I'm also not a member of the union. So I'm expecting the union to sue again over that and to take it to an appeals court. Federal union sued and wrote that the administration had offered no statutory basis for its unprecedented offer. The lawsuit questions whether the federal government will honor the commitment to pay participants through September 30, because remember, we talked about how the federal budget will expire in the middle of March. and they know this, and they don't have funds to guarantee that they're going to pay for anything yet, so they can't guarantee that they are going to have the money to honor these buyouts. Okay, so the U.S. Office of Personnel Management said at the time this was 40,000 employees. As of a couple of days ago, I think it was up to 65,000, but that's still nowhere near the 425,000, what was it, 426,200 employees that Clinton and Gore excised from the, okay. Buyouts under Clinton stemmed from a review and act by Congress. Did they stem from the review? No, they didn't stem from the review. Again, this is why you got to be very careful, even with media outlets that you don't think are influenced by U.S. imperialism. Al Jazeera can be problematic sometimes too. A few weeks into his presidency in February 1993, Clinton issued an executive order telling each government department or agency with more than 100 employees to cut at least 4% of its civilian positions over 3 years through attrition or early out programs. Oh, this is the way they spell program. Okay, I see. All right, I was getting a little excited. Okay, so here's the thing, and I could be confused, but the buyouts couldn't have stemmed from a review and an act by Congress if just a few weeks into Clinton's presidency, he issued an executive order telling the departments, the federal agencies, to cut their positions. So the buyouts stemmed from Clinton telling federal agencies to cut your workforces. And that stemmed from Clinton campaigning on reducing the size of government. And that stemmed from the DLC strategy, aligning the Democratic policy, the Democratic platform policies with right-wing voters' wishes. That's where these stemmed from, not from a review and an act by Congress. They came later, as the article points out. Congress paved the way for the buyouts after the executive order. In March 1994, Clinton signed H.R. 3345, the Federal Workforce Restructuring Act of 1994. The legislation passed by wide bipartisan margins, 391 to 17 in the House and 99 to 1 in the Senate. Democrats have been all in on screwing workers since now. The legislation authorized buyouts of up to $24,000 for selected groups of employees in the executive and judicial branches, except employees of the Department of Defense, Central Intelligence Agency, or the General Accounting Office, now called the Government Accountability Office. The law set an April 1, 1995 deadline. Clinton said the plan would enable the reduction of employment by 273,000 people by the end of 1999. After all that rhetoric about cutting the size and cost of government, our administration has done the hard work and made the tough choices, Clinton said in a statement. I believe when he said this, when he said after all the rhetoric about cutting the size and cost of government, he was talking about Reagan and the Republicans. When Clinton made this statement, he was shitting on the Republicans who talked for 8 years prior to his presidency about the need to cut government, big government and their welfare spending, big government and the entitlements, big government and the what was the other thing? Big government, all the lazy federal workers, big government and all of the waste and abuse. That was the Republicans during the Reagan era. So here Clinton is saying to them, after all of the rhetoric about cutting the size and cost of government, our administration has done the hard work and made the tough choices. We are the ones who screwed over all those workers. After you were Republicans, all you did was talk. He said, I believe the economy will be stronger and the lives of middle-class people will be better as we drive down the deficit with legislation like this. And I think around this time is also when the Democrats started hyper-focusing on the middle class. And I think this is around this time is when we stopped hearing politicians say the words poor or poverty. And by politicians, I mean Democrats. Republicans, ever since I could remember, Republicans have been trash. so they've always been racist. They've always been take the money from the working people, take the money from the poor. They're lazy anyway. We need to raise the retirement age so as many of them can die as possible so we can have all their Social Security money. You know, the Republicans have always been the obvious evil. It's when the Democrats would not stand up for the people in opposition to the Republicans that began to cause a problem for the people, because people started to be like, well, wait a minute, we're voting for you because you are supposed to be better than them. You're supposed to be fighting for us, for them. And now you're sounding just like them. Yeah, the middle class is great, but what about the working class and the poor? The Democrats should have been the ones on the side of the working class and the poor. They should have been the ones standing up for the working class and the poor. They had been before, or at least they said they had been before, because that was the whole point behind the New Deal they claimed, right? And then we saw how the New Deal screwed Black folks. So this is around the time that the Democratic Party basically intentionally moved itself further to the right. So the idea that Democrats are left wing, that they're that they're Marxist, oh, that they're radical in any way, that's an insult to those of us who are actually those things. I'm an actual communist. Don't you dare call those fucking liberal, lying, traitorous bastards Marxists and communists and leftists. They ain't my people. The hell? So, after all that rhetoric, Clinton says, from the Republicans who just talked and they ain't do shit. We did it. The legislation was an outgrowth of Clinton's National Performance Review, which launched in March 1993 with the slogan, "Make government work better and cost less." Clinton appointed Vice President Al Gore to lead the review and issue a report within 6 months. About 250 career civil servants worked on the review and created recommendations with agency employees. Not everyone agreed with the Clinton-Gore initiative. There was opposition, but union leaders supported reducing the power of middle managers, the target of most of the reductions, and the increased role of unions in bargaining. So they felt this was an acceptable trade-off. And this is the statement of John M. Kaminsky, National Performance Review Deputy Director. Gore visited federal offices for what are billed as town meetings, but they were more like group therapy sessions that allowed workers to air their feelings about their jobs, the Chicago Tribune wrote in June 1993. Gore's September 93 report made hundreds of recommendations, including buyouts. Gore went on David Letterman's late night television show to promote the plan. Letterman asked Al Gore, "So have you fixed the government?" And Gore said, "We found a lot of really ridiculous things that cost way too much money." Gore brought up government purchased ashtrays and read the federal regulations about how the ashtrays must break when dropped. Wearing safety goggles, Gore cracked the ashtray with a hammer. There's that performative stuff that the Democrats love to do. Clinton had a very deep commitment to change, but it was not hostile. Paul Light, New York University professor emeritus of public service, said Clinton's effort to reduce the federal workforce stemmed from his campaign platform as a New Democrat who said the era of big government was over, said Elaine Kamarck, I guess that's how you pronounce her name, who helped lead the Clinton-Gore review and is now director of the Brookings Institution's Center for Effective Public Management. Gee, you see how these people who get involved in these political administrations, these presidential administrations, go on to these positions that are very influential, that have to do with how we think about things that happened in history and what we understand about them. We had a tech revolution going on that did not require as many layers of management as the old days, Kamarck said. Now they talk about how the Trump administration wants to cut jobs. The Clinton approach sought to be surgical in determining which employees could be eased out without compromising the government's overall mission. The Trump approach so far involves buyouts and firings. Call the Clinton approach surgical if you want. It also included buyouts. Maybe not firings, but it included buyouts. And they're trying to make it seem like it didn't. And that is just dishonest. Okay. Trump's approach so far involves buyouts and firings without a review period or congressional action. That's true. None of this has been vetted by Congress. There have been no hearings, none of that, no law, nothing. On January 28th, the Office of Personnel Management emailed federal employees about the fork in the road. Oh, we know about that. Okay. About 2 million employees received the offer. The civilian federal workforce is about 2.4 million, setting aside U.S. Postal Service workers, which I told you they're going to go after soon. According to Pew Research Center, the average annual pay is about $106,000. Now, yes, it's true. There are some people in the federal government who make a whole lot more money than that, whole lot. But most of when you factor out the crazy salaries of the GS 13s and the 11s and the 12s and the 13s and the supervisors and the above, the average federal employee, it's not that. No, they don't make a lot of money. So the idea that the federal workforce is what's draining the government, no, that's not what it is. No. We know what it is, but yeah. Some workers were exempt from the offers, including the military, postal service employees, and workers in immigration enforcement, national security, public safety. Trump's program is more generous than Clinton's. Rachel Gressler, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, said Clinton's $25,000 offer is about $55,000 in today's dollars. Trump's plan says it will pay people over about 8 months. So factoring in the average federal worker salary, that's higher. Democratic attorneys general said the payments may not be guaranteed and urged unionized workers to follow the guidance of their union officials. Democratic senators raised similar concerns about the short window for employees to decide and Trump's authority to do this. Blah, 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 blah. So a reporter asked White House press secretary Carolyn Levitt, who is a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. I think I have enjoyed the stupidity that she has displayed in her press conferences more than I enjoyed Janine Pierre just being a clown, just being, just the neck rolling a clown as she could be, lying for the fucking fascist Biden. But anyway, okay. So Carolyn Levitt said, in answer to the question whether the program was a way to purge the government of people who disagree with the president, she said that's absolutely false. This is a suggestion to federal workers that they have to return to work. If you want federal workers to return to work, just tell them to go back. But you don't have to threaten them with a... And if they don't, then they have the option to resign. That's not what it said. That letter said you have get out, fork in the road, out, or we'll fire you. And this administration is very generously offering to pay them for 8 months. Okay, yeah, that part is true. All right, that part is true. Although guarantee, there's no guarantee. The offer, they're offering to pay them for 8 months. They cannot guarantee that they are going to get paid after March. But with Republican-controlled House and Senate, and the link to that article is also in the chat. A Republican-controlled House and Senate basically guarantees that they'll pass whatever budget they want, because the Republicans they're not gonna mount any kind of resistance to the Democrats rather are not gonna mount any kind of resistance to this. If people think they are, I don't know what you've been paying attention to. If you think the Democrats are actually going to do anything to try to resist any of this. Representative Al Green filing articles of impeachment against, didn't y'all try that shit twice? And what happened? Why are you trying that again? And if you're going to issue articles of impeachment against Trump for the offer he made to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from Gaza, how come you didn't issue those articles of impeachment when Biden made the exact same offer in private a few months before? Listen, I am not interested in giving Donald Trump a way out from him being held accountable for all of the awful shit he is doing. I am not at all saying that what Donald Trump is doing, what Elon Musk is doing, and what they're being allowed to do, what they are being enabled to do, because I understand that they have replaced some people, but they have replaced the top managers. They have replaced the heads of agencies and the top managers. They have not replaced all of the other employees in the... So when I say people are allowing them to do this, they're going along with it, they're enabling them, I get that Trump and Musk have replaced the top managers, and it's the top managers that are saying, you take these web pages down, you change this, you take this. I don't understand how all of those people are not just sitting at their desks like, fuck you. No. And of course, the response from the managers is going to be, okay, we're getting security in here. Because then that's when the security agencies, that all of these agencies have security, security outfits in there. So like the FBI have an FBI police force. The Secret Service has the Secret Service police. CIA police. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD police. Do you understand? So at some point, they're going to call security. And then security should not be answering the phone, because security would know, oh, these are the people. Oh, that's the nigga that Musk and Trump put in. He ain't my boss. I don't take orders from them. They're gonna have to fight. Can you imagine how much less chaos there would have been if a good section of just regular workers collectively said, we're not following these orders? But you know what would have had to have happened as a precursor to that being done? Workers had to be organized. They had to be organized to know that that's an option. And like I said before, actual radicals, actual revolutionaries have been so repressed by this government that the idea of workers organizing, not just for protections in the workforce, but to exercise their political power as workers. The reason workers today do not realize they have the power to collectively stand together and oppose unlawful and immoral orders is because there are no radical voices in these labor unions telling them, okay, now we have to exercise our power as a union. We collectively tell this man and his appointees, we're not doing any of this. And as a matter of fact, you can't get in the building, because now the labor union, I forget what is the federal AFCE, I forget the acronyms for what it stands for, but the union for the federal civilian workforce would get together with the worthless union for the police forces, because not the FOP, but for the agency police forces. Or, some of the employees just go and talk to, hey, I know you see what they're doing. These people are fascists. And they're trying to hire us. They're trying to fire us. They're trying to get rid of us. And I know I need my job. I know you need your kids in college. A little 8 months, what's that going to do? Your kids got to be in college for another 3 years. That 8 months ain't going to do nothing. Our union is planning to do this. And don't have the conversation at the building. Like, take them out for a beer or something. You know what I mean? Don't let anybody, and see, you have to be in an organization with people who have real radical revolutionary politics to be able to tell you and help you understand that you have the power to do that. And folks who are in the chat, saying that takes courage, you get that through organization, y'all. Good grief. You get courage through organization, because it is in organization that you find out you're not alone. You're not crazy, because you know that something is wrong. And look, there are all these other people who also know that something is wrong. I am not crazy. I am not by myself. And then you see the way other people are making moves that you didn't think you could make. They are making sacrifices. Now, everybody cannot make the same sacrifices. Do you understand? I I can't go to jail. I cannot be arrested. You know why? Because they're not going to give me my transplant medication. They will intentionally withhold it from me. They will kill me. Do you understand? So we need to be clear about what we are able to do in organization and what we are not able to do. And that is a very real, tangible, material consideration that we have to have. We are not telling people, listen, as the coordinator or co-coordinator for BAP DC, Mid-Atlantic, the chair for the coordinating committee, I'm not having people come into this organization telling them you need to be prepared to be on the front line and get locked up. I don't know that you have kids at home who you don't have anybody who can take care of if you do get locked up. I don't know if you have a medical condition that requires that you need to take your medication certain time every day, like I do, or else you will get sick. And we can be outside all we want to, demanding that they don't have to. We see the way they treat our political prisoners, right? We understand that we need to collect money for bail. And we can't always do that because people don't like organization. We keep telling people join an organization. People don't want to join an organization. Then a bunch of people get swept up in a fucking FBI raid. And then people are ringing their head. Oh, what do we do? Well, you know what? If you had joined the organization and contributed to some damn funds, we might have been able to get some people out of jail. Speaking of organizing, that's one of my comrades right there, Rafiki Morris. Wondering why I haven't talked to him today. Do you understand? This is why we tell people to join organization. It's not because organization is like this, magic bullet that cures all the things. It is because organization is where and how you learn to fight. That is why we tell it's not going to fix everything in your life. I'm a member of BAP. And I'm a part of leadership in BAP, and I still don't have a job. I still am like sitting here like, do I want to get a job, or do I want to try to work out to see how if I can do this independent thing and take care of some? I still have bills that I need to pay. And I still need to be involved in these actions where we are out doing mobilizations. And I still have to be very careful. As much as I want to, I have wanted to like throw myself in between the pigs and some of our people. But I have had to remember. And a couple of times, a couple of comrades had to pull me back, be like, man, we can't bring you your pills in jail. You know that they're not going to let you have your pills in DC jail, ma'am. Go sit your ass down. But it is through organization that all the things y'all are talking about, people would need if they were to do that. That's where you get those things. That is where you learn those things. That's where you learn there is more than one way to fight this battle. There is room, there is a place in organization for everybody. Not everybody needs to be out front. Not everybody needs to be arrested. Not everybody needs to be on the panels. We need people to take notes for the meetings so we can remember what we said, because we're not going to record our meetings because the state controls all the technology, and we'd be fucking idiots if we recorded all of our meetings on Zoom. Do you understand? We need people to provide childcare for our events, because we know the people we want to talk to the most are workers. So we create situations for our events where working people can come. So we provide childcare because we understand one of the things that makes it hard for working people to organize is they don't know what to do with their kids. They have to work, they have to come home, feed their kids, help the kids do homework. So you know what we do also? We provide food. That is why we provide food for a lot of our events because we want people who are coming from work not to have to worry about, oh, I got to eat. We know that's why we provided some food for you. Oh, and here, this person is here doing childcare. They've got some games and some crafts and some crayons and some face painting for the kids. You can bring your kids right over here. You come on in, sit down. Your kids are over there playing, and you are over here getting your dinner and learning, getting political education, getting a foothold in a community, getting the first tastes of what organization looks and feels like. And hopefully, if our message is right, if we are engaging with people well, if they're happy with the safety of their children, and if they appreciate the effort that we made to make sure that they have a safe place to come, that their physical needs are met, that they got dinner, that they didn't have to cook, that their kid is full and they're asleep, and they can take them home asleep and put them down. If we've done that right, those people will come back. Those people will come and say, how do I join this organization? And what do you want me to do? I don't know what skills I have, but I like this, that, and the third. That is why we tell people to organize. Yeah, all of this takes courage. Yes, absolutely. You don't think it takes courage for me to still get on here and do this after all of the years of people saying and doing the awful things to and about me that they, yeah, it does. It does. I got more people who have my back than the people who give me shit. So yeah, I got a whole formation. I got an 800-person formation behind me. You don't think I can conquer the goddamn world? Yes, I do. And that comes from them. That comes from knowing that I am not alone. That comes from knowing, and I have seen it happen. I've seen us do it. When one of us is in trouble, all of us all of us ride. Do you understand me? You don't get that outside of a family. And that's only if your family is, full of pretty decent people. A lot of us have a bunch of weirdos in our family. But you only get that kind of thing from a family or a community. And an organization should be a community. You don't go to an organization to find community. Let me be clear about that. No, you don't go to an organization, you find community, because a community isn't necessarily an organization, right? But if you are serious about incorporating the community, a community, this community, that community into your organization, then your organizing has to look like community building. Your organizing should incorporate some aspect of community. It doesn't have to be all of what you do, but it should be a part of what you do so that people feel comfortable coming into your organization and offering their life, their skills, their hands, their feet, their intellect, their passion to your organization. Nobody's going to do that if they think they're around a bunch of people who are full of shit and who don't give a damn about them. So that's what I had for tonight. When my comrade sent me this article from Reason, I was just like, see, and I actually didn't know all of this. I just knew that there have been several reductions in force or rifts over the past, I don't know, 30, 40 years. I mean, my mom, who passed away in 1996, she worked for the Department of Labor for over 30 years. She went through two rifts, two shutdowns and one riff. Yeah. Hmm. So I just found out from reading this article that the whole buyout thing had been done before. So listen, I understand that the way Trump is doing these things is different from the way Clinton and Gore did it. And yes, that does impact the maybe not the outcome, but it impacts the way we are responding to it. But I do think that the fact that Trump is not doing something new with this offering government workers buyouts, it's not new, y'all. I don't care how you characterize the way he did it. It is not new. And it doesn't become new and unprecedented just because we don't want to admit that Democrats actually did it before. Trump doing it a different way does not make it necessarily something we have never seen before. Yeah, we've seen government employee buyouts before. Yes. All right, we have not seen them done the way Trump has done them, but let's stop acting as if the thing he is doing by cutting the federal workforce through offering them early retirement buyouts is new. It's not new. It not only is it not new, but the Democrats were able to cut nearly 500,000 positions. It took them 7 years to do it. And Trump is not going to be able, Trump and Musk are not going to be able to reach anywhere near that number with this singular buyout. And they're not going to fire 400,000 people. They're not going to fire 375,000 people. I say that. I say that knowing that this is Donald Trump and anything could happen. And I am perfectly willing to come on the next show and admit, yeah, I was wrong about that. I don't have a problem admitting that I am wrong when I'm actually wrong. And I don't ever claim to be right, even most of the time. I just really get frustrated when people treat me like I don't know what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, you can disagree, but stop acting as if I'm an idiot. Stop acting as if I don't know what I'm saying. This is true. You may not agree with my characterization of it in relation to this moment, and that's cool. We can talk about that. But don't act as if these things have not happened before, because what Trump is doing is not unprecedented. Was it done in a less chaotic way? Yes. Yeah, it was done in a much less chaotic, much more organized, much more and over a much longer period of time. But wasn't the reason for it being done and ultimately the end result the same? People took the buyout. They did it because they wanted to reduce the size of government that was too big. The Republican lie of big government. So the Democrats come in and fix big government better than the Republicans did. Which is what, remember, Democrats were saying about border policy, that even with the ICE raids, that the ICE agents were scooping up indigenous people. And then the Democrats were coming out and saying, look at them, they can't even do ICE raids right. I mean, at least when Biden was deporting people, he was deporting more people than this. So now y'all gonna come out and brag about how much more effective at deporting people the Democrats were. Okay. These are the people y'all are trusting, haven't are better than this guy. Okay, but I'm just going to keep telling you, when Democrats have done things that Republicans have been able to use to make an already bad situation that the Democrats created even worse. I am just going to keep telling you these things because it is history. It's not a personal opinion. It's not, I'm not trying to make any particular point other than this is not a Trump issue. This is a duopoly issue. This is an issue of the entire system propped up by both parties that worked together to keep this system propped up, to deny you and me and all working class and poor people our right to human rights, life, and dignity. That is the point. So let me see what y'all have had to say in the comments here as we wrap up. I mean, look, Tara Sutton, hey, glad to see you, said the problem is we don't know what organization to join. You can join the Black Alliance for Peace. If you're an African, you can join directly as an African. If you are not African and you are in solidarity with the work that we do, you can be a member of the Solidarity Network. And one day I'll talk about why we organize like that. But if you understand the history of Black radical organization, you would understand why we organize like that, because every white leftist radical who is a real leftist radical understands why we organize like that. But any organization that is anti-capitalist, and this is what I tell people all the time, make sure the organization is explicitly and states publicly that they are anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, not just anti-war. Anti-imperialist. We'll talk about the difference between those two one day too. Pan-African. I would like for them to be socialist, but okay, if they're anti-capitalist, I think that's a good start. Because once you get to anti-capitalism, you're not that far from socialism. Because then the question becomes, well, if we're not capitalists, what are we for? There's not much left, right? So this is what I tell people when you're looking for an organization: anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, not just anti-war, pan-Africanist, absolutely, if you're African. If you're not African, it has to absolutely focus on international solidarity. And this organization must be inclusive, which means it cannot have any hangups about Black folks, queer folks, trans folks. I don't care how you personally feel about any of those issues. Immigrants, all people deserve human dignity, to have their human rights respected, and they deserve not to be discriminated against based upon any aspect of their being. If you are in an organization that tolerates separating groups of people from you because they are different in some way, that is not a revolutionary organization. That kind of ideology, that kind of thinking, moving that way is extremely colonial and imperialist. Because in our indigenous societies, we didn't do that shit. All these ideas about the roles of women and non-gender conforming people, cross-dressing people, people with multiple partners, people who never have a partner and don't ever want one. We have had the full spectrum of humanity and sexual expression and experience and existence and gender expression Since human existence, since we've been here. The only time it became a problem was when the damn colonizers came and decided that we needed to be colonized so they could steal our resources. And then they began to tell us that our culture was wrong and backward. And so they began to impose upon us their cultural values. And their cultural and social values always included this evil patriarchal social hierarchy where men made all the decisions and ruled everything. Women got married, had babies, kept the house, made sure dinner was on the table for the men, and the children were the property of the men. The women couldn't even decide what their own children would pursue, and the children definitely didn't have any say or any autonomy. And in that same European, pan-European colonial hierarchy that is tied to capitalism, then they also have the exclusion from the rest of society, or the othering of people who do not conform to their norms. So women who don't want children are others. They're weird cat ladies. People who are queer, who are attracted to the same sex romantically, they're othered. People who believe they were born in a body that expresses the wrong gender, they're othered. And they're not just othered, they are made out to be a threat to you and the way you conform to colonial societal norms. So if you are in some organization and they got a beef with trans people, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. That is not an organization that's going to get anybody free. Because what's going to happen is those people are going to join in with further marginalizing and then actually causing harm to trans people. I always ask the question, and I'm going to wrap up here because I'm hungry. I always ask the question of organizations that have messy politics. I always ask this question. And I ask this question to determine if I want to deal with them. I always ask if they were ever to gain power, considering their positions on some things, if they were ever to gain power, what would they do with that power in relation to that particular position, right? Like the libertarians, they had a big anti-war rally. Well, it was big. They had an anti-war rally a few years ago. A lot of the leftists were like, "Oh, we need to get involved with this because," and it was about Ukraine. Oh, because we're this war is pushing us closer to World War III, and we have to stop nuclear war. And even if they are right wing, we need to organize with them because they want to stop war. Now, this was the white leftists who were saying this about the libertarians and their anti-war rally. And I'm reading their platform, and I'm looking at the people who were being invited to speak, and looking at the people who were advertising and promoting it. And I'm kind of looking at it, I'm like, I don't know, man, these libertarians, their politics are So I look at the thing, the platform, and I go down the rabbit hole, and I see that they do indeed hate trans people. That they're not too fond of gay people. They're not too fond of Black folks either. They don't like Black History Month. They don't. They're not crazy about Martin Luther King. Civil rights, fuck civil rights. They want property rights. They're fine with civil rights as long as the federal government doesn't make them adhere to non-discrimination laws. That's the thing with the Libertarian Party. So, I'm looking at their platform, and I look because I'm just like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the libertarians have changed. They haven't changed. They got worse. They got worse. So I'm reading their tweets about, the top leadership in the Libertarian Party. They're tweeting things like, we could save a lot of tax money if more trans people died. I'm not kidding. Racist shit about Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday. And I asked the question of that rally, despite the people I knew who I worked with, not Sean. I don't want anybody to confuse that I'm talking about Sean. I'm not talking about Sean. But there were people that I worked with who got on board with that, and they would not talk to me about it because they knew how I felt about it, because we had to go. I'm like, listen. And I said to them in the studio that day, we had this conversation and everybody was in the studio. And I was like, look, if these people ever win power, what do you think they are going to do with that power to the groups of people that they've already said they hate? If the libertarians gain power, you don't think they're going to use that political power to actually cause harm to trans people? Because they said they would. And people didn't have an answer for that because they knew that they would. But for me, that was the deciding line. That was why I could not participate in, endorse, promote, not have anything to do with the Rage Against the War Machine rally, because I understood how dangerous these people were. Because they flat out said they hate these people, and if they ever get power, they will get rid of them because it would be better for everybody else. What if you are in an organization that has antagonistic attitudes or policies toward any group of people that's not capitalists, fascists, and the state? That's not a people's organization. That's not a revolutionary organization. So that's my advice to you. For what kind of organization to join. I can't tell you what organization. I would love for everybody to join BAP. But also then that would mean way more work for us. So, but that's what I tell people when they ask that question. And people do ask that question a lot because I talk about organizing a lot. And people always say, I don't know what organization to join. This is what I always tell them. That's never going to change. That's never, ever going to change. So, all right, that's it. It is time for my beer and my relaxation. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the dark room here as we talked about yet another reason to hate Bill Clinton and Al Gore. Just craziness. Check out my Patreon if you are able to. Please consider becoming a patron of Lukman Nation, because Patreon is kind of how I'm hoping to not have to get a job again and continue to focus my life on this work that is the most important to me, organizing. So please consider becoming a paid patron for Lukman Nation, because I do History Rewind every week. I've got a couple of extra content explaining the Freedmen's Bureau, the Compromise of 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act, and something from last week that I forgot. Oh, the Ebenezer Creek Massacre and why that's important in the emergence or the establishment of General Sherman's Field Order Number 15, otherwise known as 40 Acres and a Mule. So yeah, all of that is on my Patreon page, patreon.com/LukmanNation, LUQMANNATION. And I try to do those every week. So it is not a Black History Month thing. It's an every week thing, and I'm just going to do it until I get tired of doing it. And I would really appreciate your support, as well as other things. I have a Substack for my writing, Substack at Lukman Nation. There's one thing up there. There's about to be two. And of course, here on Black Liberation Media, check us out on Fridays at 5 o'clock. I will send a special Patreon video for the channel tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching this week. I appreciate y'all very, very much. As always, a luta continua. The struggle sure enough continues. But I promise y'all, if we keep fighting, if we get organized and fight, I promise you, Victoria Acerta. Victory is certain, and history proves it. All right? See you next time. Peace.